What's up, everybody? Big Cat back to do another box opening video, but what do we got here? We got some dice. We're ready to roll. Let's see what we get. We're hoping for a crit, rolling with advantage. Doesn't look like a crit today, but we'll take it. But anyways, what's up? We're going to do a box opening with some Adventures in the Forgotten Realm. And for those of you who may not know about this product, this was Wizards of the Coast, the fine folks who make Magic, partnering with their other huge IP. Maybe a little game you might have heard of. There's this new show on Netflix, I think. Maybe they invented it. It's a little game called Dungeons and Dragons. That's right. And for those of you who may not have known, D&D is made by the same people who make Magic. And actually, ironically, it wasn't originally that way, but the company who makes Magic was so successful that eventually they bought the IP and stewarded it into its modern era, and it's been doing great for the last few years. So, something that, I don't know, sometimes we may have thought it would never have come. Sometimes we thought it would have come a lot sooner. But Magic finally crossed over and did a set in the Dungeons and Dragons intellectual property. And this is the first one of it. It's been pretty sluggish. I would have thought early on that this would have just been like absolute fire. Like all the nerds who love Magic, love D&D. Magic was originally created as a card game. D&D players could just have in their pocket, so when they're waiting for their turn or they're waiting for their game to start or their character died, they could just shuffle up and play. Richard Garfield, genius mathematician, combinatorics PhD, basically wanted to get a board game published, went to a guy printing modules out of his garage, the original president of Wizards, and said, hey, if you'll print my board game, he said, I want a card game. Went back home, about 10 months later, comes back and has the idea of Magic. So Magic and D&D tied together from the very start, swords and sorcery, classic fantasy, but this, as of 2020, was the very first time they'd ever officially crossed paths. Don't mind these dice and skulls, we'll save those for the campaign. But, yeah, I just wanted to dive in. This recently went out of print. It's a great time to grab a few boxes. I scored a few extra. Small position on this one. But, yeah, I figured I'd just do a box opening at AFR because I really haven't opened much of this product. I've opened a couple of the gift packs, and so I've only opened a few cards from this set, but I wanted to tear through one of these. Currently, as it stands, the product's not holding a very high price. There's like a couple cards. There's one card that's fairly expensive in the whole set. Otherwise, most of it's pretty slushy right now. There's a few things here and there. So yeah, I just figured we'd do a quick box opening. I'm kind of getting hooked on doing these box openings. They're fun to do for the channel. Gives me a reason to open some packs. This is also before some of the change in the product. So I mean, like I said, it's cheaper, and this is a classic draft box. So this one's going to be a big boy. We're opening, I believe, 36 booster packs. The crossover you've been waiting for is finally here. The Heroes and Monsters of the Forgotten Realms. Basically the nominal campaign for all D&D other than certain other worlds they've set in. So if you're ever like curious about like, is there vanilla IP to Dungeons and Dragons? There is. It's basically based in the Forgotten Realms. There's some great YouTube channels out there if you want to learn more about the lore of that. You know, things like the Demogorgon, the real Demogorgon from Stranger Things, is a concept based in the Forgotten Realms. But as you can see, boy, I've been opening so much double masters and set boosters lately to rip out full stacks of 12 packs. This just feels like, oh my gosh, more Magic than we know what to do with. So, without further ado, let's open some Adventures in the Forgotten Realms booster packs. See how good our luck is today. We didn't roll a crit with our dice, but did we roll a crit with our card pack openings? Let's find out. And if you watch my other videos, these are back to the normal coalition. All your commons up front. This great D&D original monster manual treatment on those cards. That's just fun. And we go through our commons, into our uncommons, and into our rares, which in my first box video opening, which I actually deleted, we didn't show this, but I think this guy has some definite synergy with some of the ninja decks for Commander that are getting popular. Those two abilities both play well with Ninja Jutsu. And with Commander Legends 2 that just came out earlier this summer, there was a new deck based around horrors. So this guy's actually got some new synergy. But as of right now, I think he's a dollar rare. Couple cool things they added in this set. Dungeon cards. They're actually cards that say enter the dungeon. You basically progress through these to achieve different effects. And then one of the really cool things is, if you're familiar with Magic and all, basic lands, basically in every set. But the basic lands in Magic don't have rules text. They just have a prompt to lead you on an adventure. I love that. It's such a great flavor touch there. So that's some of the fun of this so far, and we're just going to fly through the rest of these. As far as this product, I mean, again, I thought as an investor, as a collector, that this set would just be like absolute fire. And this would be one that, like, oh, years from now, people are going to be like, do you remember? But we haven't really seen that happen yet. This set's sitting pretty stable. Again, there's like a couple cards off the top of my head that I know are worth something, but there's our first mythic, Icing Death, Frost Tyrant. He's a 4/3 flying vigilance for 4. He's a legendary creature dragon. When he dies, create a Frost Tongue, a legendary white equipment. Oh, so that's cool. It's basically you kill him and get a weapon. I believe he's featured in the Book of Hallowed Deeds, and actually, boy, look at that. Or the Book of Exalted Deeds, rather, I believe, explains how you would go about turning a dragon into a weapon. I could be wrong on that. If you're a D&D nerd and you know more about the Book of Exalted Deeds than I do, hit me up. Foil, rare. They have man lands in these, so that's pretty common with these, but pulling a foil, so pretty interesting that we're there. So we got a foil rare, a rare, and a mythic. Let's see how well the rest of this box does. Again, I'd still say we're probably below EV, and even with these going out of print, scoring boxes pretty cheaply these days, so nothing too flashy there, but we'll just keep going through. It's fun to open some of these cards and just look at them. I mean, Magic nostalgia is one thing we get on every set we open, but this one has D&D nostalgia, which is pretty wild. I mean, just some cool stuff. Delver's Torch and Arcane Investigator. You come to the Knoll camp. Things like this, intimidate them or fend them off. That's normally not featured on a Magic card. A normal Magic card would just have the 2 abilities. That little bit of flavor, I think, is great, and I wouldn't mind to see that just come into a Magic product, like that extra touch of flavor, but it's something to help keep this unique. Skeletal Swarming. Each skeleton you control is trample, attacks at each combat if able, and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of skeletons. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a skeleton token. If a creature died this turn, create 2. Boy, that seems slow, but that's cute that it seems around skeletons, which is not really a tribe that gets a lot of love. I can't really think of many skeletons in the game off the top of my head. Usually it's like summon undead or summon zombie or something, so skeletons. Who knew? Who knew? And we got something special in there. It's an all-art treatment facing us down. Black Dragon. I think this is something that's really cool about this set too. It is Dungeons and Dragons. It is all about that IP. So the fact that there's a young dragons at common, a black dragon at uncommon, at rare it'll be an adult dragon, and then at legendary it's a legendary dragons. Very cool. They, however, did save some of the ancient dragons in the metallic for the second set, the Baldur's Gate set. Dungeon Descent. It enters the battlefield tapped. Tapping a venture into the dungeon. So what's interesting is this venture into the dungeon mechanic was at the time only exclusive to this set. It didn't really go anywhere. From what I know, that never became a particularly popular or powerful mechanic. There's only 3 dungeons at the time of printing of this set, and they all add some value, but again, when you're paying mana and tapping stuff just to venture in the dungeon, I mean, it might be better to just focus on winning. So that's the overall take. But again, look at how cool that treatment is. I have a hope that years from now, that just gets famous. Now, one thing I'll throw out there, Wizards, if you're watching my channel, this guy's actually very playable. This guy's common in green-based creature aggro decks right now, this Prosperous Inn creature, partially because treasures are just taking over the game. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. I mean, for 2, he's great. He makes a treasure, he gains you life, like just a good tempo thing in aggressive decks to get that little bit of value so they can keep pushing. What do we have here? What do we have here? Guardian of Faith, Flash Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, any number of creatures you phase out. Huh, that doesn't seem too bad, but as far as I know, it hasn't seen much constructed play. Got another foily. That's our first foil, huh? Other than that rare over there. That's pretty nice. And a basic land, a beautiful fairy dragon. Look at that token. That is some great art. All right, well, since we got so many packs, we're going to need to hustle it up because we're 10 minutes in. I've opened 4 packs. I'd love to talk more about all these sets, but I also realized the algorithm doesn't want these videos to be very long. It's such a conflict, you know? I like opening the boxes, I like talking about the cards, but if I go too long, you'll never see it. Triumphant Adventurer. 1/1 Death Touch. As long as it's your turn, he has first strike. Whenever he attacks, venture into the dungeon. So you can see that dungeon mechanic, as you've already seen, has shown up on quite a few cards. Not that powerful, but very common in this set. I think that might have been part of what affected the power of this, is they added a very unique mechanic that's only isolated to the one set and had a lot of cards focus on it. And when you do that, if that effect doesn't become the dominant thing in competitive Magic, it really sidelines a lot of these cards. As you can see, the one card I called out so far that sees a lot of play. Beautiful card, though. Look at that. What a cool little elf chick. Death Whisperer. Drizzt Erden. Boy, he got reprinted in the other set, too. Oh, he got reprinted in the gift box I saw. But this is great art of him and his Faithful Panther companion. And he's just a rare. Surprisingly, he's probably the most famous, like, protagonist of the Forgotten Realms. There's a ton of novels written with him as the star. I mean, he's the friggin' guy on the cover of the booster pack. Yeah, he's not that powerful, and he's only a rare, not a mythic. Interesting as to why that choice was made, not to make him more powerful. The cards we're looking for, if you're curious in this set, are really Old Nala Bone, a green legendary dragon. So as you saw that Icing Death that we opened, we're looking for the green counterpart of that card, or Circle of Dreams Druid. This is actually not a bad card. I think this card sees a little bit of play. This is actually a pretty relevant ability. Or LOLTH. LOLTH is the patron deity of the Drow. Drow are basically elves that moved down and lived in the Underdark. It's basically like, imagine if like the whole world was a maze of catacombs beneath, and so it was like its own thing. LOLTH got spurned by another one of the elven deities, and she went down there, and she basically became like a mutant spider. Or actually, she wasn't even an elf. I think the elves just came to worship her. Anyhow, she sort of formed their whole society. This is what I think is so cool. This is an alternate land treatment in this set. This is a reference to classic Dungeons and Dragons modules. I'm trying to see if I even have one on the shelf. Hold on one sec, guys. Let me pull up a visual aid. So, pulling up from the bookshelf, some really old D&D stuff. Old D&D modules used to look like this. This is classic, one of the best ones out there, Ravenloft. This is the original I6 Ravenloft publication by TSR before Wizards owned them. But this is what a module used to look like. So when you wanted to set a new adventure, you'd get these. So these are actually a reference to that. It says like dungeon module, what character level. They're designed to look like the old books. So cool. And what's cool is we actually pulled the other version of this card so we can compare them side by side. So this is just an alternate treatment for this, Hall of the Storm Giants. Love this. This is one of the coolest things they did in this set. Cannot be happier with what they've done with that. Like, it doesn't even look like a Magic card. Love that. Love that. So, yeah, that's just kind of a fun reference there to, like, classic D&D modules in this set. I mean, that's where, you know, even on some of the product lately where I feel that... Oh, and we didn't even finish. Look at that. A legendary foil mythic hanging out in there. So that was actually a great pack. Sorry to be so sloppy with the content there, everybody. Just got really excited about Hall of the Storm Giants and geeking out on some D&D. And I'd say that's probably the thing this set did the best. Kind of a misfire as far as like quality of cards, but I don't know. Hard to say that. They can't make every set incredibly powerful, but this one just felt kind of flat. And like I said, it's about a year old. It's out of print already. And... But, like, the nostalgia, I mean, look at this. It looks like a dungeon, or a Dungeon Master's Guide or a Monster Manual printing, and it's a Magic card. Like, that alone is great. Oh, and this Hobgoblin Lord. This guy's actually pretty good, in my opinion. I think this guy's actually going to maybe end up in my Purphoros Commander deck. There's some cool stuff to what that guy does. adding extra damage. But yeah, back to LOLTH. I mean, the Drow are fascinating because they can't go into sunlight. They're evil, dark elves. Nominally, they're slavers. They live in a matriarchal society. You know, basically the females are in charge. They take on multiple concubines, have them fight to the death. They go up to the surface, wrap people in chains, bring them down to live the rest of their life in misery and darkness. And they worship a giant spider goddess, and if you spurn her, she'll start turning you into a half-elf, half-spider. Asmodius the Archfiend. He's a devil god. This is the god of devils in Dungeons & Dragons. If you would draw a card, exile the top card of your library face down instead. For 3 black, you can draw 7 cards. For 1 black, return all cards exiled with them to their owner's hand, and you lose that much life. So effectively what he's going to do is you pay 3 black, put 7 cards from the top of your library face down, and for 1 black, you can put 7 more cards in your hand. So for 4 black, we put 7 cards in your hand and pay 7 life. Not too bad. Not too bad. He's no Necropotence, but that's interesting. I wonder, since Gristlebrand is banned in Commander, I wonder if Asmodius sees play. Or if he's just not good enough. I mean, Gristlebrand's instant speed with no mana attached, and he's a big beatdown as well, so he's no Gristlebrand, but maybe that's the closest they can get to printing Gristlebrand these days without really getting in trouble. Because Gristlebrand, boy, he does it. I also think this is really cool. They turn the D&D classes into these sort of not quite a saga, not quite a level up card, but something in between that's pretty cool. And some of these cards, I believe Sorcerer class is one of these. It's actually worth a few bucks. Pretty spicy stuff. Pretty fun. So far, we're not hitting a ton of mythics, but we're a third of the way through the box, so let's see what else we get. The other thing I've wondered is, like, are these just worth it to use as tokens? The one thing I'd love to see is, did the community find any cool ways to, like, mix D&D and Magic together once this product came out? I think that would be so cool. I'd love to read more. If you've got a cool idea, let me know. But again, just seeing some iconic stuff from D&D, like a Beholder represented on a card. Fantastic. We should get more of that. Druid class. And we'll pull in a couple double rares here. Minion of the Mighty. He's a kobold. 1 red, menace, and he's got pack tactics. He's ready to go. And a foil back there. Just a common. So, nothing too... On the investor side, we're definitely feeling like, oh, this is why you don't open boxes. They are full of bad cards. But... you know, I just thought this is a fun product, and I recently got a few more because it just went out of print and said, hey, let's just grab a few more. You know, Double Masters is out. It's that cruel summer. We got to just get what we can and sit tight. The Book of Exalted Deeds, I was just talking about this. Not only is this a object in the game, this is actually a book that they've published. It's basically like a good holy book. As you can see with those lovely lines, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. And a foil Hand of Vecna. Wow. So we've actually done not too bad for ourselves. We're on our 3rd mythic, one of which was foil, and a foil, 2nd foil rare. At the beginning of combat on your turn, equipped creature gets... And the whole thing about the Hand of Vecna, Vecna is like a famous lich in D&D that was actually like dismembered and had its parts scattered amongst the material plane. I know some modules have focused on people piecing parts of Vecna together or attempting to summon Vecna, or when assembling their pieces, a character becoming Vecna. So Vecna is like a super big bad for D&D, and especially for the Forgotten Realms. Look at that bullet. Blech. Little yucko monster. Love those guys. That's what's so cool. D&D has a fabulous menagerie of monsters. Meteor Storm, or Swarm. Sometimes Worm Fireball ain't enough. This seems pretty bad, but that's what it is. Most of the cards in this set, I think, are somewhere in that rating. Pretty bad, unfortunately. But we're at 20 minutes, and I got most of the box to go, so we're going to fly through this one, guys. We are going to fly. Like Peter Pan. Let's fly. Oh, look at this. See that baleful Beholder art? Look at how wicked he looks. Beholder's so cool, guys. Learn more about Beholders at your local library. Teleportation Circle. At the beginning of your end step, up to one target creature, then return to the battlefield. So basically a flicker effect for 4. And that's no Conjurer's Closet by any means. That's pretty soft little effect there. So not great. Not great. So far, we're not critting. Let's see. Do we get LOLTH or Old Nullbone? Maybe LOLTH. Just a terrible card I just made up. Let's see what happens, though. Please feel free to comment if you think I'm going to pull anything good, if you're laughing at me for even wasting my time opening this. Whatever you might feel. Engagement is engagement. Look at this, though. Isn't that cool? Like, Westgate Regent, he's a vampire, and he's in that old monster manual. That guy actually seems pretty good for limited. Seems pretty weak for everything else. Oh, Mordenkainen. So Mordenkainen looks like he's also a Planeswalker in this set because we just opened the emblem for him. Not one I've seen, but Mordenkainen is one of those famous characters in D&D because there are actually spells named after him, like Mordenkainen's Watchdog or Bigby's Magic Hand or Melf's Acid Arrow. Some of the original players had vanity spells named after him that just made it into the spell books, and we've seen ever since. Instrument of the Bards. Look at this cute little bard and all of her animal friends. She's playing a song here. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a harmony counter on Instrument of the Bards. Search your library for a creature card equal to that. Put it in the battlefield. Okay, that's not too bad. Kind of slow. Another foil. I'll just go over here. It's not a rare, so... All right, we'll keep moving. Haven't hit any of the big hits yet. 3 mythics, 1 which is foil. So, let's see. The cards we really want, Gnawbone and LOLTH, are mythics, so let's see. Boy. You get so many commons opening regular products. Zorn! This guy sees some play. He's awesome. These things just like eat metal. They're from the elemental plane of Earth. And it's like a big yucky 3-legged like bleh, and just like chugs like treasure and stuff. So very cool. In another video that you'll probably never see, maybe I'll release it as like my terrible first video ever. I opened the D&D art version of that. Really funny, fun little creature. But he's, with the rise of treasures in D&D, that's probably one of the things this set did right, is it interacted with treasures. And boy, I think anyone will tell you if they've played Magic in the last couple years, treasures have run amok in the game. Goldspan Dragon, Magda, just like Zorn, all these cards, treasures are such a relevant quantity, and it seems like food not as bad. Oh, Yuan-Ti Malazan. I don't know what that is. Yuan-Ti are snake people in D&D. He can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. Deals combat damage to a player venturing into the dungeon. Okay, whatever. In limited, that's fine if you built the dungeon deck. Which, I will say, I've heard this set has a great draft format, and it makes the dungeon very relevant because in limited, the dungeon's value is relevant. So, that's one thing. I think, you know, if you've got a friend, especially some free time, and you both are familiar with Magic and Dungeons & Dragons, this is probably an absolute blast to play. Look at that Manticore. I think getting them together and being like, look at this one thing we enjoy represented in another thing, belovedly. Drider. So this is what I was talking about. That's a drow turned into a spider because it didn't listen to LOLTH's orders. Oh, Mind Flayer. So these are classic little things that basically can pull your brain out of your head with an octopus tentacle and feed on your intelligence. And here's the D&D version of it. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature as long as you control it. Sounds about right. Dominate monster. That's what it does. It dominates monsters. Oh, foil land too. I do like those D&D lands a lot, though. I mean, the idea that you're, instead of just having a full art land like you do nowadays because they're so common, it's easy to fill your deck, and the idea that, sorry, I keep spoiling what's later in the pack. I'm really terrible with these box opening videos. But the idea that, you know, oh, Grandmaster of the Flowers. So I believe, and I'm not positive, I believe this is the human form, yes, of Bahamut. So in Dungeons & Dragons, one thing that's very common is metallic dragons are generally benevolent, gold being the most benevolent of all, and Bahamut is the counterpart to Tiamat, the chromatic queen of dragons who releases all the like evil giant colored dragons on the world. And the metallic ones fight them, but they take human form. They like to steward progress. So as you can see, if he has 7 or more loyalty, he's a 7/7 indestructible flying dragon, and his 2 abilities just make him stronger. This is a really cool card. I completely forgot about him. I'm really stoked I opened that. Add him to our mythic stack over there. Foil, and you can see we opened her earlier, and it's definitely my type. You know, little goth girl. She's doing her thing there. But Look at the awesome foiling on these flat cards. It just is a great treatment. It's one of my favorite things they did, beyond how excited I get, even though this one looks a little miscut. Beyond that, in the D&D style, the foiling on these is bonkers. Okay. Exalted, Fire Giant Duke. 7/3 for 5. Trample. Whenever he's dealt damage, venture in the dungeon. Meh. He's lame. We're getting some cool uncommons. Forsworn Paladin. So he's an evil paladin for 1. Menace. Pay 1 life, create a treasure. Target creature gets +2 for 0. If a mana from a treasure is spent, it's also gain Death Touch. I wonder if this sees any play. It seems a little slow with that tapping, but that is a cool creature. And again, as you can see, we go through this. Treasures, appropriately enough, were a huge part of this set, along with the dungeon. So interesting to see that being a thing, because Magic has done sets before where they basically tried to riff on the same idea as D&D with Zendikar. The reason there's allies, the reason there's so many equipments, the reason there's things like maps and hooks, they really tried to get this idea of like dungeon world. Actually, here's another card that sees a little play from what I understand, or I think it's a commander card, is Orb of Dragonkind. Plays dragons, sack it, look at the top 7, you can put dragons in your hand, so if you like dragons, you like this orb. It's a dragon orb. Or a Drorb, if you prefer. I think calling it a Drorb is not a bad idea, because it's a dragon orb. You know, if your friend had a DR name, Drake's dragon orb, Drorb. Just cut to the chase, you know? We've all only got so much time in this world, and some of us are spending it opening Magic cards just to put in a box and wonder, okay, so here he is, the new Jace. If you're familiar with Magic and you like Jace, this guy, not this guy is the new Jace. They've been printed twice in 2 sets, super popular. He's a beloved ranger. Like, he even says beloved ranger in his name. And what's even crazier is the ranger's the weakest class in D&D right now. So no one loves them at all, let alone beloved. So the fact that he's got a little hamster and he's beloved, he's really punching above his weight class there. And he's another mythic, so we like him. And look at that, another foil rare. The foil slot's treating us real well. There's the OG art of the Mind Flayer. Man, that is spooky. Yikes, yuck. That's scary. Well, foil rare's holding it down for us. I mean, might be a bust. I don't know if we're getting LOLTH or Old Gnawbone here. I'd love to see it, especially some dungeon treatment or foil, but who knows? Maybe we got the God Box. Maybe we did roll crit. Who knows? Temple of the Dragon Queen. That temple is Tiamat. Yikes. Don't mess with Tiamat, guys. Let me just tell you that. Reclusive Painter. I like this. An evil bard? Intriguing. Very intriguing. Nadar, Selfless Paladin. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, venture in the dungeon. And if you completed a dungeon, they all get +1/+1. Still pretty weak. Even though it's a 3 for a 3/3 with value, still pretty weak. And that just kind of underscores that in limited, that card would be great. Just like the dungeon. In constructed, I don't think anyone cares. You find some prisoners. I love these cards that are just a phrase. Like that, to me, there should be more of that in Magic as well. It's just like a phrase or a moment encapsulated as a card. Oh, Wizard Spellbook. This was another big mechanic they had for the set, is rolling a d20. Generally in Magic, you sometimes roll dice. It's not big. That level of variance basically makes cards unplayable. But as you can see, copy that card, you may cast the copy 1 through 9. 10 through 19, copy that card, you may cast the copy by paying 1 rather than paying mana cost. Okay. 20. Copy each card exiled with it. So, as you can see, but this is expensive, and then you're rolling. It's basically like, do you want to pay a lot to hope that it works? In Magic, generally, you should just assume that what your opponent's doing is working, and you're trying to work more effectively to win. Paying a lot to roll a dice to hope it hits a number to get it to work. Yeah, you get right out of town with that one. Oh, looks like we got some in the back there. So, yeah, I think that's why, unfortunately, I think for Commander and some of the sets where you can really get into a theme, that's where that becomes fun. Oh, here we go. We're doubling up on Beholder Energy. We got the Hive of the Eye Tyrant, a land that becomes a Beholder, and I love that not only does this look like a Beholder's lair, it looks like a Beholder. And there's the Baleful Beholder back there in foil. He's like, stay out of my home. So you can see those are cute. Those are fun. Not really life-changing, but what are you gonna do? Not every card can be a winner. Not every dice roll can be a crit. A Mimic. Love this, and I love this art. Like, look at that little Yucko chest. Oh, it's so cute. I would have that as a little pet. Feed him garbage. I imagine that's what those eat. Oh, wow, we get the Book of Exalted Deeds and the alternate, the Book of Vile Darkness. It's basically pure evil distilled down into book form. And it looks like it. Look at that lich. He's like, oh, he should have read closer. He got shocked. He looked up the word idiot and saw his own face next to it. Gotcha. Dunked. Get dunked. All right, well, we've hit a lot of mythics, none of them being the one we want. We've already hit a Planeswalker, we've already hit a Legendary, we've hit a couple more. I mean, we're already to where I expect we've hit as many mythics as this box will hold. No LOLTH, no old Gnawbone, but I do love this card. Evolving Wilds, a classic. It in this adventure form, and it's all purple. Fantastic, guys. Between this and Double Masters and some of the other stuff you've had going on, give the art director a raise. I've got opinions about this card, too. Who likes opening packs where the rare is bad? No. I'm not just saying it's not worth a lot of money. I'm saying it's bad. That you feel bad about yourself by opening. Because when they made this card, they thought about you. The guy who, I guess, likes spending money on lottery tickets. Not only wants to lose and be like, oh, I lost a scratcher and likes that. He likes to be told that he's a fool. And that no one likes him. And that his girlfriend's actually at his buddy's house right now when he's opening the pack. That's who they made Flump for. Is the person who just wasn't hating themselves enough today and needed a reason for the universe to send them a sign that they just weren't worth it. Man, that extended art Green Dragon is sick. That looks great. That looks great. And a Rust Monster. Yuck. Gelatinous Cube, another classic D&D creature. Look at that, just sliding through the hallway. You know, the funny thing about gelatinous cubes it's ostensibly, like, you can barely see them. They look like whatever the air in the dungeon is. Usually the easiest way to identify them is if you see, like, coins or a knife floating above the ground in the dungeon. But whenever they paint them, they usually give them some color because they kind of want to emphasize them. So they're usually, like, neon green, and I'm like, man, if you're down in the dungeon and it's neon green, you're going to see it. But also, remember in Dark Vision in D&D, you can't see any color. But again, color in a clear object would insinuate that there are small particles within that object that you can see and thus are reflecting light. How that works with Dark Vision, don't ask. It's Dungeons & Dragons, it's not physics. Another Forsworn Paladin. Interesting collation. Pulled two of the same rare there. So we're down to our last couple packs. Let's hope big. LOLTH, Gnawbone, you coming out? Am I ever going to see you? Or is it just another bust? Who knows? How does our adventure end? Let's find out. Boom. Boom. There's Volo. Look at this little funny guy. So Volo is a human wizard. I thought Volo was a halfling. But he, like, catalogs stuff. He, like, writes the monster manual. He's just, like, a funny guy who will be like, it's an owlbear. Let me pet it. So whenever you cast a creature spell that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control or a creature in your graveyard, copy it. So he's just like, I like creatures. Classic art, though. Look at that happy little muffin. Kind of looks like a little Muppet. What a funny little guy, Volo. Little Volo. But in Limited, that sounds pretty good. I don't even know if that's good in Commander good enough, but the deck built on them could be a really fun thing. You're just like copying clones. How about that for a Commander theme? I fill my deck full of clones. My Commander is Volo. And then I play a creature I want, or creatures that were basically like the more of them you have in play with the same name, they do something. And then you have Volo as your commander, and you just keep playing clone to make tokens of the original guy you clone, so every creature you play is like 2 more copies of the other guy. Yep, still not good. Treasure chest. They give you these with foil lands when you buy the gift pack, by the way. So I'm now sitting on quite a few treasure chests. Okay, last pack. Let's see. What's it gonna be? You wanna pause the video, place your guesses. You know, please use my videos for unsolicited gambling. I don't mean that, but I totally do / do not mean that. But if you want to pause my videos and gamble with your friends, I don't care if you watched it earlier, watch it again. Use it. Make money. Make enemies. Do what you got to do. And our last card is a mythic. Flame Skull. Flying. Can't block. When it dies, exile it. If you do exile the top card of your library, you can play it. Pretty weak. So, all in all, fun to open a box of this. The biggest takeaway is the walk down nostalgia lane. I mean, it's cool to think about D&D while you're opening packs. Otherwise, as you guys can see, didn't really go big. I mean, we did go pretty heavy on the mythics for a typical booster box. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 7 mythics? That's pretty good for a draft box, honestly, of normal product. The card I'm most probably excited about is this guy, the Grand Master of Flowers, but I don't think he sees any play. Unfortunately, another white commander for 4 is dominating all the formats, and that's a Wandering Emperor. So, fortunately, he got outclassed, pal. You got outclassed. Otherwise, thanks for joining me for a box opening, guys. And again, just a really cool set. There's a glimpse at the first time that these 2 huge IPs have officially crossed over. Since then, it's only happened one more time. Seems like they're going to dip back into that well quite often. And with both sets being weak, I don't know how long it'll last. So, probably just going to put these back in the vault with my other treasures and go back to delving into my card collection. Otherwise, have a good night, everybody. Stay out of the dungeon. Stay safe.